I think the most exciting part of being able to do Agatha All Along was the opportunity to work with Catherine Hahn again, both because I love her personally, but because her sense of Agatha is so enormous. There's so much there in her mind, body, spirit, and it is my job to come up with the story, but it was fueled by my understanding of what she's capable of, what interests her, and what I knew that audiences would enjoy seeing her do on screen. We did an enormous amount of research on witches. Like that was really a lot of the early days in the room. It's a little bit of like vamping as you're trying to figure out the story. I am not one for research myself personally. I don't actually like that. So the way I sort of organized it was I have this fabulous team of writers, and I gave them assignments. So they would come in and do presentations on potions, on herbology, on divination, and some of them, the reason that I hired them, they already had passionate connections to various forms of witchcraft. So there was that, and then we spoke to a witch, which was really impactful, and then we were sort of devouring witchy content. We had crystals in the room. We lit candles and got in trouble. On the very first day of the room, we cast a spell. We were actually remote, and so I had my lovely assistant deliver spell kits to each of the writers' home, and we lit candles together and did a spell that was called the Road Opener spell. I think that there is so much there with Agatha Harkness. That's really the challenge of making any series is, do you have enough? I come from the feature space, and so like with a feature, you have, depending on who you're making the feature for, you're making an 1.5-hour movie or a 3-hour movie, depending. But it is more finite, obviously. And with TV, you need so much more. There is so much more surface area. And with Agatha, because she is a liar and a performer, and she wears so many masks, to me, it's sort of it feels infinite, because anytime you peel back a layer, there's going to be another layer of lies and performance underneath it, and that's really sort of the journey of the show, is peeling back those layers. So The Witch's Road, it's hard to remember the exact moments, the moment where that kind of clicked. We had the idea that I really wanted to put Agatha in a situation where she was forced to assemble a coven. That seemed really like a terrific opportunity for both comedy and drama, because it's just all conflict all the time. And also it had very sort of heisty vibes, and I that seemed right for her because she's a con artist. The fact that they were traveling the road, again, I think we needed what I like to call the container of what is the thing of the show, and the Witch's Road comic is terrific and much beloved, and so it was really kind of our jumping off point. It was the idea of we could take the notion of the Witch's Road, and we could really make it our own. So the tone of the series, the way that I describe it is 2 words, and it is Catherine Hahn. That is the best way I can articulate what this show does. I think, WandaVision had a real trick of a tone in that it, was a comedy, it was a sitcom, it was broad, but it was very heartfelt, moments of big drama, moments of big tragedy, and I very much wanted to carry that particular tone on into Agatha All Along, but we have this added piece of horror and sort of teeth that we didn't have in WandaVision. And there's a darkness, and that is all, it all sort of stems from Agatha, the character herself. And because Catherine is able to do all of these levels, she's really the way to conceive of what this show is. So one of the questions in creating the show was, how serious is it going to be? How far are we going to take things? And something that I think was even surprising to us, to the writers, was, what are the stakes? Initially, I think, the risks were a little softer because, we're making a comedy and it should be fun. But as we really got into the witchcraft and the lore of it, we realized that the stakes needed to be real and that we needed to put them in real peril. And that really dovetails with the practical element of the show, the fact that there's like a very visceral threats that are grounded in nature, that these are witches, who are centuries old, but the threats are the same, the threat of drowning, the threat of being burned, the threat, of being buried alive, of being stoned. Like this is, these were our tools and we take them really seriously. The trials are sort of how we structure the episodes for kind of the midsection of the show. And with WandaVision, there was kind of like a cleaner line of how each episode functioned inside of like one type of one specific era of sitcoms. In this show, the trials were our device, but it was more than just one influence. There was the burden of, each trial was assigned to a distinct witch, so it was about her history and her arc and her particular growth. But then we tried very hard to tie that to something that was either directly or indirectly witchy. In the case of Jen, she's in this sort of Nancy Meyers, Big Little Lies type of space. And that's not, you don't think of witches in that space, but I do, because like those are like covens of powerful, duplicitous women. And so, that seemed, especially for the first trial, it seemed like such a fun place to start, such an unexpected environment for our witches. And also the idea of like the second they step in, they transform. I wanted the first trial to be the most startling transformation. So to have them go from their road kits like into their coastal grandma chic looks seemed like the sort of biggest jump. And then all the sort of trials followed that same logic of it's tied to the witch, but how do we pull in other influences to create a distinct, discrete world. So with Agatha All Along, I think what people can expect is a fun, scary ride. That is how the show is pitched. That's what you see in the trailer. And it has all of those thrills and delights in kind of a horror comedy space. But it, very much like WandaVision, the show is front loaded with these kinds of thrills and all the theatricality of the costumes and the looks and the music. But also like WandaVision, there is a great deal of depth to the show, and we do go to dramatic places. So I think what people can expect is a thrill ride that ultimately is very emotionally affecting.